Let's go, folks. Time for the Gibby Show.
How you doing, baseball fans? Welcome to another edition of the Gibby Show, presented by Miller Lite, the official beer of Major League Baseball and the Gibby Show. This is the All-Star Week edition. I'm John Arezzi. Joining me, two-time manager of the Toronto Blue Jays, member of the 1986 World Champion New York Mets, #1 best-selling author. The man always tells it like it is, direct from San Antonio, Texas. An all-star forever in the hearts of Blue Jays fans. The baseball life for himself, Mr. John Gibbons. Gibby, how you doing?
Well, I don't know about Blue Jays fans necessarily, but my mother's eyes. I guess that's all that matters.
You're a perennial all-star to your mom.
That's right. Aren't we all both? So, that's it. Or we better be, or we're in trouble, right?
You better be, exactly, or else we're in trouble. Especially your mom is like, yeah, I mean, she's still advises, consults, and is right there for you if you misbehave, John. So she's there watching you all the time. Well, I hope you're having a great All-Star Week. On today's show, we got a big one for you. We are in the middle of the All-Star break, and we will discuss the Blue Jays as where they head into the second half. We have great news for Toronto fans about the Home Run Derby, which we'll talk about. A very special Gabbing with Gibby, brought to you by Tim Hortons. This week we'll be with Donnie Baseball, the Jays bench coach, Don Mattingly. What a great get that is. We'll have another roast and toast inspired by our friends at Miller Lite as well. So big show today, John, but let's get right into the leadoff. We have to start the leadoff with the Home Run Derby. Vladdy Jr. gets the crown. And that's something that he's wanted since he broke into the game, and last night he achieved it.
Yeah, he gets the crown and a nice paycheck, too. I think they get $1 million, the winner. And then the second place gets, I read that $750, and then everybody gets something, right? So hopefully John Schneider gets a little bit of piece of that pie, too, But anyway, it was fun to watch. I tell you, when his first round, he went up against Mookie Betts, and, he hit a lot of home runs. And it looked like he got tired out there at the end of it, right?
He did.
And then of course, he's taking on the hometown hero, and
yes.
And he made it look easy. His first round. I was like, kidding me with that? And then of course, Vladdy rose to the occasion, and he good for him, man. He almost won it. Pete Alonso beat him a couple years ago, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah. And but now he joins his father. How cool is that?
Yeah, the first father-son tandem to win Home Run Derby. His dad, of course, Vladdy Sr. won it in 2007. And it was kind of cool last night watching it and seeing some of the footage from years ago. And you see a young Vladdy there on the field with his dad. And he had his dad on like FaceTime last night during his breaks. And so it was kind of cool. And I think his sense of pride winning it, not just personally, but for the country of Canada and the city of Toronto, really meant a lot. And this could be really a spark plug for him going into the second half, because he's now the Home Run Derby king.
Oh yeah, one thing, Vladdy, he never lacked any confidence, right? So he doesn't. He knows he's good, but something like this, it's got to give him a boost, right? He's got to feel good about that. And the only problem is that they messed up. They said he was from Cuba or something on ESPN or something. It's like, come on, man. He's Canadian. I think he was born in Canada.
Yeah, I was kind of shocked when I saw the graphic, like second player from Cuba other than Yoenis Cespedes to win the Home Run Derby. I'm like, something a little wrong here. Get your facts straight.
ESPN's been going through a little turmoil at the moment, I think, anyway.
Yeah, that's a little early roast, I guess, for them, mixing up and putting that up there erroneously. But we congratulate Vladdy. It was really great to see, and he had such an infectious smile, and he got to wear they had a jacket made too now for the winners of the Home Run Derby. So he had that home run jacket on as the king of the Home Run Derby last night, and
I tell you,
infectious smile.
Is that? I don't know if that'll ever quite equal the Masters where you get the green jacket, but it's a start of something.
It's a new tradition, I guess. It's a new tradition. But, certainly other news going on with the Jays. We congratulate Vladdy. Very happy for him winning the Derby last night. Also, I mean, the Jays are kind of heading into the second half of the year. They're in the wild card, that they're, tied for second place in the wild card now. But there's always, people are talking about, well, the team is flashes of greatness, and then then they stumble. But your assessment of them is really interesting. I mean, because a lot of people preordained the Jays as like they're going to have this monster season and run right into the World Series, but that's not reality, John. What is your assessment of all of that? Do you think they were preordained, and how do you feel about the Jays going into the second half?
John, I feel really good. I think they're in a good spot. And naturally, I picked them to go all the way myself.
Hmm.
Um, but I can remember back when in 2013 when I came back for a second go round. We had made some trades with brought in Jose Reyes, Burley, Josh Johnson, and you know, Bonifacio, and then R.A. Dickey and all that. So everybody says you're shooing to win the World Series, and it wasn't quite like that, right? And so it's everybody wants the expectations, and you want the baseball world to think, you know what, hey, you're legit. That's all you want, right? Now you got to go out and play. But if you really analyze their winner, I mean, there wasn't. I don't think it was the guys they brought in are going to guarantee anything. There's no guarantee in that sport, right? And they made some nice additions. Bassett, Swanson's pitched very well. They gave up a couple pretty good hitters. Uh, Teoscar going out there, Gurriel. So that but I don't think you look at even with coming off. When you had Barrios, Kikuchi struggled a little bit last year. So to say they're going to win it automatically, it's probably undue pressure. Probably not fair. It's not fair to those guys. But they've hung in there. They've taken some heat along the way. But you could tell any team out there, and you can't forget too that Tampa got off to a historic start, right? But they've slowly come back to the pack. They've had some
Yeah.
injuries, so that's not a normal start anyway. So you take that start out, and bring them back to the pack a little bit. Things are a little more bunched up than they are at the moment. Or so I think they're in a great spot. Any team out there would take being tied for the second place wild card at the All Star break and feel pretty damn good about it. So it's all the naysayers out there. You know what? I think boys ought to be feeling pretty good, and I think they got a nice long run in them in the second half.
Yeah, as you said, any team would like to be where they are right now. If you're in that wild card spot, leading the division, but the Rays, as you said, are kind of falling a little bit. They're coming down to earth, as are the Orioles. They're coming down to earth too. The Yankees, I
The
mean, without
Texas
Judge,
Rangers,
and the Rangers,
yeah,
without Judge too, the
what happened?
Yankees are kind of like they're floundering at 500. So I think it's still, with the exception of the Rays, who kind of, even though falling back to earth, are still doing really well. I think the Jays are in a good spot for the second half to continue on their pace. But as we get closer to the trade deadline, what would you be lobbying for right now, or if you were in that seat and going to the GM and say, "Hey, we could really use a hitter. We could really use a left-handed reliever. We could use another starter as a backup." Who would you be lobbying for if you were in that seat going to the GM towards a trade deadline?
Well, real quick, you talked about the Tampa coming back to the pack, Texas,
Yeah,
all. It's 162 games is a long year, right? And
yeah,
eventually the best teams win, and so the Blue Jays are in a good spot right now, right? What they need, I think, what's going to happen probably is they're going to address the bullpen, maybe bring in that extra guy to give some of those guys down there a breather. Because if you look at their lineup, there's really nobody in there you want to replace, or that you can even replace. You can't. You got some guys having some really good years in the like we said a minute ago. I think there's a nice little run here in the second half, and some guys maybe kind of struggling on and off the first half. Vladdy being one of them are going to take off, and that'll solve everything. But you plus people, you got to remember. I can remember as being when I was a coach and a manager. You want everything, right? You say we want this guy, we want this guy. Yeah, that's ideal, but you can't always get what you want, right? Didn't the Rolling Stones say that or something?
that is very
Eh, eh,
true. They did.
yeah, and you know what? Even if you want some guys, this guy may be available, but you don't have the players to trade him, to acquire this guy. So things got to. matchup. But it's not easy. I can remember going back in 2015. We brought in David Price, but we needed a starter, right? I
Hmm.
think they're feeling pretty. A lot will depend on Manoah, right? How he bounces back. But the only real other move that had a huge impact was Tulowitzki came in for Reyes because Jose, was getting older and he couldn't move as well anymore, and Tulowitzki cleaned up the infield mess. So it wasn't like if Jose had been playing really well or he was a little bit younger and all that, he couldn't have done that. You wouldn't have done that, right?
Yeah.
So everything's got to match up, and you can't just discard certain guys. They make too much money. You can't sit them on the bench. You can't get rid of them, and you always have to find a taker. So I think they'll address or maybe bring in a little extra for the bullpen because it really in reality sometimes that's all you can do anyway.
Yeah, and well, they look going into the second half. I mean, one thing you brought up is how well Manoah is going to do. He did make his triumphant return to the team last week. He pitched 6 innings, 5 hit ball, 8 strikeouts, gave up just 1 run, and they picked up the W with a 12-2 blowout against the Tigers. What did you see about Manoah that indicates one way or the other? He's back for good. He looked good.
Yeah, Johnny. You never really know for sure. He's got to get a few under his belt. I was to be honest with you. I was a little bit. I thought, man, they're bringing him back awful quick. I hope he's ready.
Yes.
But they know better than we do. I mean, they're sitting there. They're tracking everything.
Yeah.
It was a perfect game for him. I mean, it was tight. It was close early, but then they opened it up and gave him a little breathing room. But you're not going to be able to go off just one start. He'll make a couple more, and then they'll have a better idea. But for his sake, in the Blue Jay Nation, it was a nice thing because he's a key part of that team, and you hate to see anybody struggle that badly and have to go all the way down to A ball, especially when a good kid. But when he makes it back, it makes it that much more rewarding. So, yeah, I think
Yeah.
that, like we said, it comes down. I think they're in good shape.
Hey, it was good to see a smile back in that dugout, and obviously he's a beloved member of the team, so everybody's rooting him on. But it was really good to see his return, and as you said, we'll have to watch over the next several starts to see how consistent he stays because he is a key member of that staff.
Yeah,
Um,
for this year and many years to come.
Absolutely. Well, you are listening to the Gibby Show, presented by our friends at Miller Lite and of All Star Week. John, I'm sure that both you and I have been enjoying it with a couple of brewskis from Miller Lite.
Yeah. Hey, All Star Week or not, it doesn't matter. we're,
It doesn't matter. It's
we're
always
we're
Miller
we're
time.
we're having a couple here or there, man.
Always Miller time.
Corner booths, sticky floors, weekdays that feel like weekends. You never forget the way some things taste. Miller Lite, great taste, 90 calories. Tastes like Miller time.
All right, we have another topic to bring up, and that is the draft. The Major League Baseball annual amateur draft took place this past week, and the Jays selected a shortstop. They had the 20th pick in the draft, and they selected a 17-year-old kid out of Florida, the first draftee ever from Strawberry Crest High School down there. And a very unique story on this young man. Arjan Namala is his name, and he is actually was the 11th ranked player on the Major League Pipeline Draft prospect rankings. But what makes his story even more interesting, not just 17 years old, he is a shortstop with immense talent at his age, but he is the first uh, generation Indian. Uh, his parents were born in India, and no player of Indian descent has ever been drafted higher in any of the four major North American sports, and no Indian whose parents or heritage was born in India has ever played in a major league game. So, an interesting pick for the Jays, and a very interesting story.
Yeah, it is. It just shows you how worldwide baseball is becoming, right?
Yeah,
And I
global.
mean, yeah, globally, yeah. You just look at the home run hitting contest last year and all the big players from Latin America, and yeah, what a cool story. And he's ranked very, very high.
Yes.
So he's got the skill set, and he grew up in the U.S. Obviously, that's helped him, right?
Yes.
Um, but it'd be interesting to see how it all plays out. Next thing you know, you can if you can expand, baseball, worldwide. It's all it can do is help the sport. But it's a pretty neat story. I heard he's a wonderful kid.
Yeah.
First class, and so kudos to them.
Yeah, you know Sweeney Murdy, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
He wrote a story about this young man, and it was out and read it, and what a great story that Sweeney had about Arjan Namala. So anyway, we're going to look at that closely, and of course, he's only 17 years old, but and of course, up in Toronto, there is a pretty good local Indian and South Asian community eager to cheer on somebody like this. I just said it goes global. So it could be a really good thing down the road to see this young man progress in the Blue Jays minor league system.
Yeah, it's yeah. Here's what's so funny about the baseball draft. If it's like football or basketball, and they go right to the big leagues, right, or the NFL, or these kids will get drafted. Even it happens some in hockey. I think they get drafted and they can play in the lower levels. But he gets drafted the first round. He's going to get a nice little bonus, and then he'll go down to the rookie ball. And it may be 3, 4, 5 years before the team even sees him,
Right.
or the fans do. So that's kind of the part of baseball. It's like everybody gets excited, and then hey, what happened to that dude? Where is he? He'll be here in a couple of years, but it's hopefully it works out, because you never know with draft picks. I was one that didn't work out too well, but that's it'd be
But it got
kind
you
of
in the
cool
game.
Got me in the game, got me a podcast, got me a book.
I got your book, right? And so many great years for you in skipper seat for the Blue Jays. Well, that'll wrap up the lead off, and now it's time for Gabbing with Gibby, brought to you by Tim Hortons. Tim's Camp Day is coming July 19th. When you buy a hot or iced coffee on Camp Day, 100% of the proceeds will help send many youngsters to a multi-year life-changing experience. Only on July 19th, buy a Tim's Coffee and help change youth's lives. This Camp Day, John, is a big, big deal for Tim's and for the entire country.
Yeah, and I hope everybody goes out and supports it, because it's anytime you're doing something to help kids along the way, especially in this day and age, man, where it's so tough growing up. So we tip our hats to Tim's. That they do this every year, and it's important, man, because we got to take care of our youth. That's our future.
And it was great because they've been doing this since 1974. They've supported over 315,000 youths through the multi-year development programs at 7 Tim's camps. Collectively, they raised over $12 million last year. And cumulatively, since 1991, they've raised over $230 million for this camp. Wow. So, it's great to support it. It happens July the 19th, and we'll talk more about it next week right here on the Gibby Show as well.
That's awesome.
Today on Gabbing with Gibby, brought to you by Tim Hortons, our guest is one of the all-time greats of the game. He's a former MVP, an AL batting champion, an RBI leader, 6-time All-Star, a 9-time Gold Glover, 3 Silver Slugger awards, and those are just his player accolades. He won NL Manager of the Year in 2020. His number 23 has been retired by the New York Yankees, and today he is a bench coach of the Blue Jays. It's an honor to welcome Donnie Baseball, Mr. Don Mattingly, to Gabbing with Gibby. Donnie, it's a pleasure to meet you.
No, it's a pleasure to meet you, John, and it's a pleasure to be on the show. I'm looking forward to it.
Donnie, hey, listen, Donnie, I gotta admit, because we're almost the same age, but I played a little bit with the Mets in the '80s, but I was a huge fan of yours, right? And it's like, when I was watching I always watch transactions, even though I'm not in the game anymore on the field. I'm still involved with the heavy. And when I saw the transactions this offseason, when I saw the Blue Jays hired you as a bench coach, I thought it was the best move they could have made, right? Because you look at not only your playing career, but your managing career. You look at you and Dusty Baker, what you guys have both done. You've had a tremendous career on the field. you've been very successful as a manager. And now you're going to go help John Schneider out there, right? In this day and age, too, when the coaching staffs are very young and inexperienced, I thought the best move they made was bringing you in for some of that experience. And was that an easy choice for you?
It was. They made it easy. As Ross called this winter and talked about the situation, and I'd seen their club. We'd played them a couple of times when I was in Miami the last few years, COVID year, and I think maybe the year after, both times in Buffalo. And so you've seen the talent. Obviously, I'd been to the city of Toronto before, liked the city. At that point, I didn't know what I wanted to do, really. Honestly,
Right.
I knew I just didn't want to be in Miami. I thought it was time for a new voice down there, and it's worked out with Skip in Miami. And so I didn't quite know I got an 8-year-old, so I didn't know if I'm going to be with T-ball or whatever we're doing here. But I think the fit was right, and I think that's what drew me to Toronto. Like you said, I think Snides is a really good decision maker and a young manager. But knows what he wants to do. Like you said, staffs are younger nowadays. You have a lot more information that filters in. I think you do need to find that balance between the information and some guys that just you got to understand competing and getting after it. I think there's some players there that, I felt like my voice is good for them to be able to talk and talk baseball and advancement and how you get better. And because we got some really good young players, but there's still room to grow, right? And so I felt like Toronto was a great fit for me.
Oh, no doubt about it. And the fans loved it too. But there's something to it. The game analytics is taking over the game pretty much, right? But you hit it on the head, Donnie. There's got to be a balance somewhere because there's human beings still playing the game, and it's about competing, right? It's like they say, one of my, and we're going to get into your career a little bit in a few minutes on your production as a hitter, right? You were run producer, you hit home runs, and you did a lot of other things, but it's like they take the emphasis at it, scoring runs, right? Or RBI guys, right? It's like, it's not guys. He gets more opportunities. Yeah, some guys do get more opportunities, but if it was all just a guy on third base, infield back, 1 out, no outs. Okay, that's where more opportunities comes in. But there's certain guys that are clutch performers, right? And you were one of those guys. That's where. But nowadays, it's like if we can't put a number on it, it's I don't know how you feel about the analytics world, but what your answer is like it's driving me crazy. Maybe I wasn't smart enough. I wasn't smart enough to get it all. Maybe that's what my problem was. But you guys striking a pretty good balance there in Toronto?
I feel like we do. And it's better. Here's what I feel about the numbers. And it really has, since I started coaching in 2004, went to New York with Joe Torre on that staff. It really has just ballooned and blossomed and almost taken off, right? To a point where I think it got too far a little bit. I do feel like the balance is coming back. I think you see some of the hires, talking to Chris Young down in Texas. He hires Boch down there. Everybody's into the numbers. Numbers tell us the story. We've always been into the numbers. We've always evaluated guys by their numbers. It's just a lot more now, right? And I think that causes some, honestly, confusion for players because we take that number and we kind of want to teach off of that number instead of teaching off of the, let's say, the swing or the delivery. And I always picture it as, hey, the numbers tell me what time it is, but they don't tell me how to make the clock. And as a hitting guy or somebody that's developing someone, maybe a pitching guy or infield, whatever, I know there's a base in there somewhere in the swing and in the mindset that creates those numbers. And they'll say we're hitting too many balls on the ground. And my answer would be, well, why are we hitting too many balls on the ground? And nobody's trying to just hit the ball on the ground. We all want to hit line drives and balls in the gap and balls out of the ballpark. So you're not trying to, but what's causing in the swing to you to do too much of that? And so I always look at, you got to still be able to teach and understand how things work, and not, because that's what creates these numbers. And so it's important to understand both sides of this. There's a lot of good information in the numbers. The numbers tell me what a guy's doing. And then I can go and I go, look, I can say, oh, there it is. This is why he's doing that, right? This is why his ground balls are elevated, or whatever that might be. So I do like both sides of it. I think it's becoming more balanced, though. And I think we went too far for a little bit there. But I do think it's coming back to like, hey, how do we use the numbers? How do we teach as well and compete within that?
Yeah, I agree with you. Hey, speaking of numbers, hey, I got some numbers right here for you. I was looking over some stuff, right?
All right.
Hey, this is for you. You're a Hall of Famer, by the way. You won the MVP in '85, right? Okay. You had 727 plate appearances. Off the top of your head, you got any idea how many times you struck out that year with 727 plate appearances?
Well, I've heard over the years with all the strikeout talk, right? I know it's probably under 45.
41.
Oh, wow. Okay.
41, 727 plate appearances. Then you came back, your second MVP the following year, 86. You had more plate appearances, 742, and you struck out less times, 35. And you're hitting home runs, you're driving in runs. Then Wade Boggs was, you were right on his heel for some batting titles. He was winning the batting titles. He struck out more than you did. So I'm saying, and I guess my point is, when you watch a game now, it's like, gosh, it's like, all these strikeouts, and I get it. It's all relative, the area you play, and guys throw really hard. I get all that, but that's a part of the game I think that drives everybody crazy. But when I saw those numbers, it's like, you got to be kidding me, man, with that. I mean, that's how did you do that, man?
Well, I appreciate that, and I think it is a little bit of difference in the times. I think a strikeout was an embarrassment when I grew up in the game, right? It's like two strikes, you learn to put the ball in play, right? And that kind of got twisted a little bit, like, hey, an out's an out, and that's probably a little bit of good and a little bit of bad, right? In the outs and out. But I remember a guy telling me, he goes, I'd rather see a guy hit into or I'd rather see him strike out than hit into a double play. And I'm like, no shit, right? Like, no kidding, right? I don't want to see him hit into a double play either, but if you don't put it in play, you have zero chance, right? And that's the way I think you looked at it. You have zero chance to get a hit or create anything if you don't put it in play. And so I think that's a difference in time, the years. I think Gwynn was kind of like myself. Yes. He didn't strike out hardly at all. Boggsy's strikeouts were probably not very big. If they were, they were higher, but probably not very high. So I think it's a difference in times. The stuff is better. There's no question that there's more guys with power stuff. That when you see bullpens and things, the velocity, there's a lot of guys with power. I don't quite think that. I think the 96 and 97 is probably the 93s and 94s. Right. I think that just the way we're measuring velocity is probably better with technology now. So I think the guys that are 100 are probably that 96 guy. Right. And I got to believe that Randy Johnson and Nolan and those guys are popping 104s and 105s. Right. Because that stuff was just electric. So I think it is a difference in times, but it was a gift I feel like I was given, starting out of the gate. I didn't swing and miss. And I remember telling Trey Hillman, and I know Trey's a friend of yours, I said, I remember times when I got a fastball down the middle and swung through it and was like, what the heck happened? I don't know how I missed that ball, right? That type of thing was your thinking. And I was just, I think, in a sense, gifted with being able to put the ball in play.
Well, gosh, because I mean, those are numbers like that's for like even this kid down there in Miami now, Arise, right? He's hitting high. He's
really
got,
good,
I mean,
too.
I know he's really good, but he's got more strikeouts. He's got about that many strikeouts. He's got half a season to go. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that, for such a productive, run producing, high home run, that kind of hitter, I mean, that That's incredible. So you're a rare breed even for back then. But it's kind of like, I guess that's one part of the game, because I used to strike out a lot because I wasn't a very good hitter, right? And so I would have fit, but if you weren't worried about strikeouts back then, you might have hit it. You might have hit 70 home runs. You might own that record over there.
Well, I did learn. Honestly, I did learn to, like, because I was a low home run guy, and I think that came with time and power, because I was hitting 4 home runs in A ball, 4 home runs in Double A, right? But I was able to drive in 100 runs with that, so I never really worried about the power. As I got a little older and a little stronger, Lou Piniella taught me how to use that bottom hand a little bit better.
Okay.
Created some backspin for me. I started hitting for some power. And I remember telling Mickey Vernon, who was our traveling hitting guy with New York, and really good guy, I said, Mickey, man, I don't even care about homers. Why should I worry about homers? And he says, easy now. He says, that homer will either put a game away or get you back in the game. And that made me think about that a little bit, because you play to win games, right?
Right.
So instead of being able to take that single, every once in a while you want to take that shot, right? And you hit a 3-run homer and you're down 4 or down 5. Now we got a game. Or if we're up 3 and you hit a 3-run homer, this one's over, right? That type of
great
thinking.
point.
So I started thinking about that a little differently and was able to drive the ball with that, and still stay within my swing. And that's that made it better for me.
Well, that's awesome. Hey, Johnny, what do you got for Donnie?
It's a pleasure, as I said before, to be able to talk to you, Donnie. You're in Toronto this year, new team for you, new country as well. Tell us how the experience has been so far this year in Toronto, being part of the Blue Jays and being a member of a team in a different country.
Yeah, I'm excited, and I think it's went very well. It's been a new experience for sure. I live 10 minutes from the ballpark. I don't have a car there. I walk every day to the yard, which is kind of cool. I picture it it's like living in Manhattan and walking over to the ballpark every day, which is really cool. Toronto's a great city. It's definitely different representing. You feel like you represent the whole country. It's a new experience because, we go to Detroit just there the other day when, Danny Jansen hits that homer in the ninth, the place explodes, right? When we're in Minnesota, something good happens for us, the place explodes. I'm like, wow, this is pretty cool. The Canadian fans, they travel well, and I hear the experience in Seattle is crazy with the number of fans up there. So it's been really good. I've enjoyed the organization and really what they're trying to do, and the players. They got a talented group. I love being able to work with John, and again, he's I think a really decisive guy. He knows what he wants to do. But it's also, I think for him, I want to be a voice and a set of eyes and give him something to think about, right? As he's making decisions, or if he's got something going on in the clubhouse, here's something, a way to deal with that. And that's been fun for me because, I really like John and what he does and the staff. And so it's been good to feel like, almost like a Don Zimmer type, right? Where I don't want to be, I don't feel old. I feel great. I know I'm getting older, but I know I've went through a lot and been through a lot in the game and seen a lot of changes. And I think that's always good to be able to pass that along.
Tim's camp date is on July 19th. Buy a coffee and 100% of the proceeds will help change youth's lives.
You won't believe what I'll achieve. On camp day, we become who I want to be. Camp day, it ain't child's play.
Yeah, as your role as the bench coach for the Jays, assisting John Schneider, who's in his first full season as a skipper for the team. Describe some of the things that you do with John, the relationship, the back and forth. I mean, with your experience and your vast history in the game, I'm sure Schneider learns from you. But tell us about that dynamic and what you actually do during a game for Schneider.
So like during the game, I'm going to prepare really just like I'm managing the game. And knowing I've been in his seat, I know he's got a lot going on. He's either got pitching, what's coming, where I want to go, who do I have left in the bullpen, what I want to do. But then offensively on the other side, I just want to be kind of trying to stay with him and stay ahead. You want to, hey, we got this guy coming up. Would you run for him? Would you hit for this guy if they go, a certain pitcher? on the pitching side, I've kind of really tried to watch our guys first because I didn't really have a good feel for that staff other than a few of the relievers that I had in Miami. So him and Pete have been going through that, but more and more, I feel like I got a pretty good feel for our staff, and then listen to our guys in our pregame meetings and things like that. If there's any thought on that side of it, I think him and Pete are pretty much tuned in on the pitching, but there are times I know I want to be prepared if he says, "What do you think here?" Right? Or "What do you want to do here?" And if I would see something, I would suggest it. But for the pitching side, I've tried to stay away, but really try to be ahead of the game for him. Make sure guys are ready to play. As far as, hey, we may run here. If we run here, you're going to second base. You're going to be catching, whatever those moves are. So I'm trying to stay with the players on that side of it and stay ahead so they're prepared and don't get caught off guard.
Who's impressed you the most during the season with the team on their dynamics, and who's been the kind of the guy who say, "Wow, this guy's doing wonderful." I mean, I'm really impressed.
Oh, there's a lot of guys that I feel like are doing really well. Guys that I don't know have been like Swanson, and the bullpen's been really good. We kind of beat him up early. We could see there was a little section in the first half that he just ran out of gas, and we needed to get him off his, get him some rest in there. He's been really impressive. Obviously, watching Romano, a guy that bounces back, doesn't seem to be bothered by, he's given up a couple of homers late that cost us, but he doesn't seem to be bothered, bounces back the next time out, which is always impressive. Gosman is kind of ridiculous as you watch him, how good he is and what he does. And honestly, Barrios and Kukuc have been keeping us in it, right? With Alec, struggling early, and looks like hopefully he's back on track. They've been impressive. Bo is impressive at the plate. What he does and the way he stays inside baseballs and how he attacks up there. I think he's got room to grow, honestly, and develop and really turn into. I think there's more power there. I think there's power there now, but I think there's 40 homers in there as he grows and matures and understands exactly what he wants to do up there in situations. Obviously, Vlad, what he can do and his swing. These two are kind of like, they remind me of like Big Papi and Manny. You get those two guys back to back in the order. As they get better and better, you want to feed those guys. We got to get guys on base in front of them. So really impressive with those two guys and their swings and how good they are. Whit Merrifield's been, I had Whit in Japan for a small period of time. You don't get to see much, but he's one of those guys that I'm sure, I know he doesn't really do well with analytics. It's like, the exit velocity, but he just seems to get 2 hits every day, right? And when he plays, he gets on base, he steals a base. He does different things for you, and he's just one of those guys that the analytics don't love, right? But he's a really good baseball player. So he's been impressive. Chappie, the start he got off to was crazy, right? And rolling, and how good he is defensively I heard about it, but wow, this guy's really good defensively. I could go up and down. I keep going. I love our guys. I love this team. I think we have not really hit our stride. Maybe we're starting to, but we've hung in there, in this kind of marathonish race. We've kept in stride. We're in stride and in position to get going and really get hot. And I remember I don't know if it was June or May or whatever, we were feeling like, God, we're just not playing good. And Ross came in and we were 19-12 or 18-11 or 19-11 or whatever. He goes, we had the best record in the American League this month. I'm like, wow, it just didn't feel like, because we feel like we're better, right? And I think we feel like we got more in the tank. And hopefully we kind of hit that stride and really play the potential second half.
Yeah, you guys are in a good spot. It's funny. You hear, how they kind of certain teams, they crown them champs, before the season even starts. We all know that's right. But it's nice to have those expectations. But where you guys are sitting right now, Tampa got off to a historic start, right? That doesn't happen that often. But so where you're at right now at the All-Star break, people out there going, well, you struggle and what's wrong with the team? Nothing's wrong with the team. Like you said, you haven't hit your stride, but if the season ended today, you're in the playoffs. I mean,
Right.
what more could you ask for, But I
Right.
agree with you, man. I think you guys are going to get on a nice little roll here at the end. But you're hanging in there. Naturally, you've struggled a little bit against the American League East, but that'll improve. You're too good a team for somebody to dominate.
Yeah, it cycles, right? And I talk about the Boston thing for us has been a struggle for some reason. And they match up pretty good with us. They got a lot of lefties in the lineup. Baltimore matches up good, but they got a lot of lefties in their lineup. They put pressure on our right-handed pitching. We only got one lefty out of the pen, so we can't. It's kind of hard for us to match up with some of these guys, pitching wise. But when I was in Miami, and we had a couple of teams that were really competitive, but for the most part, we always bumped on Philly. And for some reason, you have that one team out there that you beat. For whatever reason, things go your way, the ball bounces your way, and Boston's been that team for us that we've struggled with. But we'll get over that hump. You beat them once, you beat them twice, the next thing you know, that's gone.
Exactly. Yeah, you guys are in a good spot. We're still naturally our team, our podcast here focuses mostly on the Blue Jays because I spend a lot of time there. But all that aside, that I'm a fan of you guys up there. You got a good team. You're going to be in a good spot, So
I think so.
Well, hey, tell you one thing. Couple more questions, and we'll let you go, man. Enjoy your All-Star break, Donnie. Hey, what was it like playing for old Steinbrenner, man?
You know what? There you go. I coughed right during that, right? Wait, as soon as you said Steinbrenner. But he could be tough, right? But the one to me, and I always talk about positive, number one, he does a lot of things. And he did some things for me, just when I hurt my back and things like that. He does things for people that you would never thought, and really kind in that way and generous. I like the fact that he was expecting to win every year. I think we've seen some teams out there that say, "Oh, we play 500. We're rebuilding." There's no rebuilding in New York with Mr. Steinbrenner. It was like, we're here to win every year, and that's a good feeling, even if you don't. That's what we're after. I always felt like that was a healthy thing, so that was good. The other side's tough. That when you don't perform, he's not afraid to talk to the New York Post and let the fans of New York know that you're not doing what you're supposed to be doing. And that can always, if you got that thin skin and trying to play in New York and deal with that, it could be a little worrisome for you.
Hey, but you're one of them tough dudes from Indiana. Well, heck, you didn't struggle, man. You didn't have to worry about George.
Oh, I struggle plenty. I always say nobody gets out of New York alive. You're going to catch the boo birds. It's tough. It's a tough place to play. I think it's a great place to play because they understand the game. And when you get a guy over from second base, or get a bunt down, or make a good defensive play and make the right decision, and you play the game right, you play hard, they appreciate that. And that's always good for guys that can play. I always felt like New York is good for guys that can play because they put pressure on you to come out and perform all the time, not just and I've seen it a little bit in LA, honestly, hey, they kind of golf clap a guy for 2 years when he had one good year. And it's like, New York, that doesn't happen. They're going to say, hey, where's it at? We won it tonight. Yesterday don't matter no more. Let's go. Let's do it. I want to see it tonight. Right.
Yeah. But Donnie, even if you're a good player, everybody can't play there. I mean, you're in that rare category because the pressure, the constant, I spent about a year and a half with the Mets, up and down, didn't play a whole lot. But I felt that, I could see, but I talk about intimidation. It's like, you got to be kidding. It's like the old movie Escape from New York. Remember you talking about the old movie?
Right. I always think of it like this. And I tell Joe T when I was coaching, I'm like, you can't be afraid of the field in New York. You cannot be afraid. If you're afraid of the field and what can happen out there, that's trouble. Right. And to me, it's like, if that was the one thing as a young player, I'm from Indiana, I'm from a small town. I get there, I'm 21 years old, and driving around New York scares the crap out of me.
Yeah.
Right. That kind of thing scares me. But the one thing I could always bring it back to is I can take care of this diamond part. I can play. I know how to play this game. It's the same anywhere I go. So I always felt like if I can take care of this part, I'll learn to deal with everything else. But I'm going to take care of this field because I know how to do that. And I know I can do that in my heart. I know I can play here. Right. And so I always thought about it in those terms, like I'm going to play the game because it's the same here, same mound, same distance. Got to hit the same breaking ball or make the same play no matter where I'm at. And that's the way I always tried to look at it.
Wow, that's pretty impressive right there. That's what a refreshing way to look at it. It ain't that easy though, but I mean, what a great
well, yeah, but to me, that's probably the way I survived it best, right? For me, maybe someone else would think of it differently, but I always thought I can take care of this part of it.
And you did, man. You did a tremendous job. Johnny, you got anything left for him before we let him go enjoy his All-Star break?
Yeah, one last question. How often do you get asked to shave your sideburns?
More in Toronto now than anywhere. I have signed more Simpsons pictures in Toronto. And it's funny, Toronto and Australia. When I took the Dodgers to Australia to start the season, there was a lot of like, hey, Mattingly, shave those sideburns. And in Toronto, a lot of pictures. Yeah, there's something about that. And it's crazy how long ago that was, right?
Pop culture, right? 1992.
Yeah.
1990,
wow.
31 years ago.
Yeah, I remember going to the radio station or wherever we went to the studio. Steve Sachs and myself both did our voiceovers in probably 20 minutes, 30 minutes, right? And then everybody thinks you went and acted and all this other stuff. You go read some lines and it comes out, and next thing you know, it's something like that. So it's really kind of cool to be a part of that show.
Yeah, that's it, Johnny. That's awesome, man. Well, listen, hey, we can't thank you enough for coming on here. You know, you're doing a tremendous job with those guys, and keep it up. And we're rooting for you. And hey, thanks for taking the time. It's not easy to step away. You don't get many days off. So good luck to you, pal.
Good. All good. Good to talk to you, John and John. Here we go.
Thank you. Thank you, Don.
All right.
Thanks, Donnie.
See you guys.
Appreciate
all right.
it,
Take
pal.
care.
Donnie Baseball, Don Mattingly joining us for another great Gabbing with Gibby. Another awesome guest, John. What a great guy.
Yeah, you know, he's been, even though we're similar in age, I was always a big fan of the guy, you know, when he's playing for the Yankees. Tremendous career. In my eyes, he's a Hall of Famer. You know, they got to put him and Keith Hernandez both in the Hall of Fame.
On the same day, they should.
Exactly. They're both in New York. They're handling those, the Mets and the Yanks. But, you know, he look, not only was he a great player, he went on to be a very successful manager, you know,
He did.
with the Dodgers and then the Marlins. So I thought it was a great sign, you know, when the Blue Jays brought him in, because he gives him some stability, some very great experience. And, you know, you heard him talk, you know, he's a very calm, soothing guy, but a lot of wisdom, you know. So
quiet leader, he seems to be.
Yeah, but you know, he he's got that it, whatever that is.
Yes, he is, that indelible it factor. But
it factor.
It was a pleasure, man, because I certainly followed his career. I was always a fan of Don Mattingly, and I'm so happy that he's with the Jays. And maybe this could be the year that he finally gets that taste of the World Series. It would be really cool.
That's right. Exactly.
All righty, so now it's time for the roast and toast inspired by our friends over at Miller Lite. John, it's time for this week's Who We Gonna Roast, Who We Gonna Toast. And roasting is interesting this week. It's like I've noticed, and I'm sure you have, there's a growing number of players that have decided, for whatever reason, not to go to the All-Star game anymore. And it seems to be getting more each and every year. This year was several, over 10, for sure, that have opted out of the World Series for various reasons. When I was growing up, and I'm sure when you were growing up watching the game and even being in the game, that was kind of an honor for a guy to be selected to the All-Star team. And now it's kind of like maybe not as important as it used to be. And I think I gotta say we gotta roast those guys that each and every year don't go to the game. If you're injured, it's one thing, but just not going because you don't want to go is another thing. You were selected. What's your opinion?
Yeah, yeah. If you're a little bit banged up or something, I get it. That's your loyalties to your team. You need those few days. But you're right. It does seem like it's kind of ho hum. We get some of these guys that go every year, and even like the home run hitting contest. Some of your top home run hitters don't even get into that. I understand that a little bit. It's like the slam dunk contest, right? But it's still a great honor for all these guys. Maybe it's just because we're old farts, but I can remember watching the All-Star game as a kid, man. Like but it almost seemed like more intensity. Heck, you can go back and remember the old Pete Rose, Ray Fosse play.
Yes.
Yeah, that was old Pete got a little carried away there, but it's like the game. It's just like a regular game, just the star players. Now it's become more of a show.
It's more
But
organic too with
hey,
the uniforms. I used to love seeing like all the players in their team
yeah,
unis wearing those, and
yeah.
what a sense of pride. And it was always an exciting event. And now it seems like home run derby is kind of even more important than the All-Star game for whatever reasons. But hey, listen, it's the times that we live in today. But sometimes I wish we could go back and kind of just like bring back some of that tradition that was so important during the All-Star week.
Yeah, I guess you and I never got a chance to be Major League All Stars, but some of these guys they get picked every year, so maybe it'd be not again. I don't
Not
I don't know
again.
that
They're gonna
feeling.
do this media again. So anyway, that's the roast. But on the toast, we got to give the toast this week to that Cincinnati rookie sensation, Ellie De La Cruz. I've never seen a play like this before in the game. He stole second, third, and home in the
I
span of
have.
two pitches. He became the first Reds player since 1919 to steal second, third, and home in the same inning, and it was the latest electrifying feat from this franchise-changing rookie. And he accomplished this feat against Milwaukee reliever Elvis Pajero. So it was an exciting play, John. Got to
Oh
toast
yeah,
him.
you don't. Oh yeah, it's this kid's done nothing but excited everybody, electrified the baseball world since he showed up, right? And he even hit for the cycle too, I think, didn't he?
Yes,
He
he
might,
started to
yeah.
hit the cycle.
But I got to tell you, I've seen it before. I saw it in 2018. Kevin Pillar do it.
No
And
kidding.
the difference, yeah, and of course Kevin was on, it was a Blue Jay on my team, so I liked his a little better because
Of
it
course.
was against Dylan Betances Yankees. I think it was a close game, one run lead. He gave us an insurance run late in the game. You know, I guess where I'm going to give the nod to Pilar is because he didn't run as fast as the other guy. Even though Kevin can run a little bit. The problem is he get a little carried away now. He's stealing all the bags. He thinks for crying out loud. Because then we had a game in New York. He tried to steal third with 2 outs and got blown up. We were down a couple runs. I had to snap on him. I said, let's
Did you?
go, dude. That's a cardinal sin, And but yeah, I got tremendous feat. You're not gonna see that very often. If you may never see it again. I got to give the nod to old Kevin Pillar though, because he's one of our guys.
There you go. All
But
right.
toast them both.
Yeah, toast them both. Why not? Why not toast them both?
Real quick though. I gotta go back on that roast a little bit. Honorable mention. I was watching the pre All-Star game stuff. Where they interview the players. They all come out in the different media and go around to each player and talk about the honor and all that stuff. And somebody went up and I think it was MLB Network. They were interviewing Whit Merrifield, right? Oh, Whit, man, Whit's just about third or fourth All-Star games. He's a tremendous, great player and just a good guy. All they wanted to ask him about was Vladdy Jr. I'm going, for crying out loud, it sounded like, hey, how about talking to Whit about, hey, another nice honor here, pal. I said, so I got to roast whoever that was.
Well, that's total little
As
bit
an
of
honorable
disrespect
mention.
there. I mean, you have a guy to the game, you asking him about Vladdy the home run derby. I mean, come on, give me a break, as they would say. Wow.
Corner booths, sticky floors, weekdays that feel like weekends. You never forget the way some things taste. Miller Lite, great taste, 90 calories. Tastes like Miller time.
Well, that's going to about wrap up this edition of the Gibby Show. For John Gibbons, this is John Arezzi. We're going to talk more baseball with you right here next week. So have a great week, everybody, and go Blue Jays.